Hey, Jeff here, and hope you're safe today. I'm shooting this video in the event that we don't have Sunday service. I'll probably put it out even if we do have Sunday service, but I just sort of felt preemptively it's Friday, and it's looking like the weather may tell us not to be on the roads Sunday morning. So we want to be safe and honor that, and not only be safe for ourselves, but protect others. So I had something on my mind. This isn't the sermon I was planning. And but I really, as I've just been thinking about this weekend, I've had something very heavy on my heart. And I thought, let me shoot a video and share a few thoughts and just offer this to you. Maybe this will be your Sunday morning message. Waving to my neighbor. You know, it's funny, I can hear the generator of my neighbors right down there. I think they're practicing, testing it to make sure it's working for the coming possible storm. We will see. But something on my mind, and it's about finishing well. And I really have been thinking about this in the last few days, particularly, and maybe you have too. So I wanted to offer a few thoughts and a passage and a couple ideas that of things I'm learning. So finishing well is it's something that most people don't do. What that means to finish well is that we, whatever we're doing, whether it's our job, our relationship, our marriage, our ministry, that we do it in a way that we do it for a long time, and by the end, we haven't crashed and blown up and self-destructed and taken others with us, but instead we've left a legacy and remained somewhat intact, maybe battered and bruised and scarred and beaten and bloody, but still following Jesus in those things. And maybe you've seen the news in the last few weeks. I mean, we could pick any time period and say Christian leaders fall, and not just Christian leaders, but leaders of all kinds fall and have moral failures, legal problems, self-destruction type behavior. And in the last couple of weeks, just, of my life, I've noticed two large, significant, worldwide, super highly influential Christian leaders have been exposed. And it's terrifying. Number one, it's a letdown. You realize, wow, I put my trust in this person, and maybe you feel this way, I do, like, can I trust anyone? Is anyone real? Is anyone not pretending and lying and covering all this secret stuff up while supposedly leading me to faith in God? And then the second thought I have is that could be me. Like, at any moment, none of us are beyond having a moment of failure that just marks our whole life. And it really is fragile. And you span that over a whole lifestyle, and to avoid falling in one of those pits and just handicapping yourself is really hard. And some of us watching this, maybe you've already done that, and maybe you're on the road to redemption. And if you're there, I just want to tell you that's amazing. And there's no condemnation in Christ. And if he's restoring you from a time of falling and you've gotten back up, then you're my hero. That's amazing that you've done that. You're a David. You're a Paul. You've done that. So talking about finishing well, I'm going to read a short passage to you. And I remember when I was young, I got into running. My father would go running for PT, practicing his tests as a lieutenant colonel, and he would take me with him. That's how I got into running, and I ran for a long time. I remember this one particular race we did. It was a 5K, which is about 3.1 miles. And before the race, they would offer these Gatorade. It was like free back then, and they'd have this station with all these cups of Gatorade. And I remember I was like 10, and to me Gatorade was like candy. So I remember I grabbed 3 or 4 of those and I just guzzled them. They were just little cups, but I just guzzled a bunch of them. And then we went and did the race, and about half a mile in, I just completely lost consciousness. I started vomiting and I fell over, and my dad woke me up. I was on the ground, and I had just had some sort of reaction where I drunk too much, and I don't know what happened. Maybe it was spiked. I don't know. Maybe I just overloaded myself with electrolytes. And I'm not sure why, but I got to a point where I couldn't run anymore, and my body just, it reacted and rejected that So I vomited all of it up, and I was just kind of, I remember seeing stars and coming to, and my dad walked with me the whole rest of the race, which was like over 2 miles. We just walked it. I couldn't run, and so he sacrificed himself and ran instead of running, walked with me, and I made it. I finished the race. It was really slow. My time was like 30 minutes or something. It was horrible for a 5K, but I made it. So that's how it is. Fighting the fight, running the race, we're going to have things that stop us or try to stop us and slow us, and that's normal. But we want to finish, even if we finish scarred and tired and beaten and maybe with a little vomit on our shirt. I remember looking down at my shirt and seeing vomit on my shirt that I had done to myself. But I finished the race. And we want to finish the race following Jesus. 2 Timothy 4, verses 5 through 8. But you be sober in all things, endure hardship, do the work of an evangelist, fulfill your ministry. For I am already being poured out as a drink offering. The time of my departure has come. I have fought the good fight. I finished the course. I kept the faith. In the future, there's laid up for me a crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me on that day, and not only to me, but to all who have loved his appearing. So he talks, about this language, this parable, if you would, of running a race, of fighting a fight. Other places he uses the language of running a race, Hebrews chapter 12. And so we have this challenge to finish well, to finish the race. And I want to leave you with a few practical ideas. And there's a great book. I don't have it with me because I am not at my office. But it's a wonderful book. I've read it and reread it for 30 years. It's called The Making of a Leader. It's by a fellow named Robert Clinton. And it's a exhaustive, it's like a opus, magnum opus on leadership and Christianity. And it's a study of literally hundreds of leaders, both biblically, politically, historical figures, military figures, inspirational leadership in all realms. And it takes a biblical perspective on sort of like the span of one's life. If we start here and we end here, and how do we finish well? It's a beautiful book. I've recommended it to many. And toward the end of that book, he has an appendix, and he has a very interesting place in there that I just want to speak from now. And it's he has 5 behaviors that studies have shown. These 5 behaviors are all common to people who finish well. So looking again at history, at the Bible, looking through, a study on people and over a span of one's life, and extracting some behaviors that seem to be very common for people that make it and don't burn out and do finish well. And what were those? And I read that, and I really thought, I want to learn from this. I want to learn from where others have trod this path that they've made it, because I want to finish well. Don't you want to finish well? We want to finish well. So here's those things, and I'm going to just list them for you and then talk a moment about each one. Robert Clinton, The Making of a Leader, he lists 5 things. The first is a lifelong perspective. And so the first, strategy, I guess you could say, for finishing well is that we have a lifelong perspective. And so what that means is that I look at my life, and I look at today in the context of yesterday and tomorrow. So if you're in the middle of something crazy, rather than quit, rather than blow all the money that we have, rather than do something awful to our health or get in a bad relationship, that lifelong perspective means, let me just, rather than act in the moment and on the feeling I have, let me look at the legacy that I have to lose if I mess up, and all the good sunny days that might be ahead of me if I just hang in there. And that lifelong perspective of saying, this is more than just today. This moment does not dictate my whole life. This season even does not dictate my entire life. My garden out back right now is just all dead. But within a few months, it's going to be blooming with all kinds of colors. So you don't want to look at the now and say, this is how it's always going to be. That lifelong perspective is important for finishing well. And, part of that also is having what I would call a sovereign mindset, where, when I get in a moment where I'm not real sure, do I really believe that God's in control? And that's when it tests our faith. And Do I really believe that this thing that's happening to me, that God is in control? If I do, then I say, okay, I will live for another day. Let me keep doing the right thing and move on. The second idea, the second strategy for finishing well is personal renewal. Personal renewal. So this is the idea that, it's real easy for us to sort of plateau. We get to a place, maybe in our relationships, our job, our health, our ministry, our relationship with God, and we just sort of coast because it becomes easy. And, I know this as a husband and a father, it's real easy to just get in a rut and really have no life and no energy in me for anything. I stop bringing my wife flowers or thinking about taking her on a date or spending special time with my kids or, even just doing anything fun for myself. And, sometimes we just kind of need like a knock on the head to kind of bring us back to like, hey, life is amazing and there's more out there. I don't have to lose my fire. I don't have to turn from a fire into an ember. And so that personal renewal can take a lot of different forms. The very most, bare, raw form of it is just crying out to God and saying, God, I'm like, you told me I could have life and you promised me and you invited me to have life and life abundant. Why don't I feel that way? And allow the Lord to maybe show us where we've plateaued or we've gotten bored of him. Have you gotten bored of God? Sometimes we do. And, we get bored in our marriage. We get bored with whatever. And sometimes we need to be shaken up. We need that personal renewal to say, Lord, light a fire under me again and bring me back to life. And I'm supposed to be a person of love and joy and peace. And I don't feel that way. So renew me. And a few ways to do that, I jotted down here is, maybe take a trip, take a trip, like go somewhere, do something alone for a few days. Another great way is to, get a hobby or go back to the first things that used to invigorate you in your life. There's a lot of different ways to do that, but personal renewal, and I would say specifically spiritual renewal. The third strategy for finishing well is the disciplines, and Mr. Clinton in his book mentions this, that the spiritual disciplines are, it's just the source of everything in us is going to be a relationship with God. And if that is dry and not happening, if it's been a long time since you read your Bible or sang to the Lord or prayed to the Lord or fasted or confessed your sin, that's a great question if you're watching this. When is the last time you confessed a sin to anyone? You might say, well, I don't really have any sins. Yes. Maybe think about that. Where do you need the mercy of God in your life? Again. And so the spiritual disciplines of getting back to a regular, habitual, committed, daily time of devotion where you spend time with Jesus in his word, in prayer, singing, worshiping him, and finding him and letting him find you is the third strategy. The fourth one is what Robert Clinton calls a learning posture. This is a really important one. A learning posture. And a learning posture, how do people that finish well tend to have a learning posture? In other words, they don't get to a place where they sort of know everything and they're kind of beyond learning anything. And so, that's a check for us. It's a check in my spirit. When is the last time I read a book? When is the last time I sought to study something new that I'm not familiar with? Even if you're 30 or 40 or 50, you haven't arrived. When you get kind of 30 or 40, you start thinking you know something. The reality is we really don't yet. We really don't. In fact, I think, to quote Dr. Ransom from the Space Trilogy, C.S. Lewis, after all his adventures on other planets, he gets off the spaceship and he lands on Earth again after being away for a long time. He looks around and he says, there's 1,000 things right around me that I don't know anything about. And that's a seasoned God lover that says that. So I think that's just a neat reminder for us to, having that learning posture. If you think you know everything, if you think you kind of have the corner market on how things should be and how faith should be and what God is like, we want to check our hearts and come humbly again to him and become learners. Become, as Jesus said, as children. That learning posture and, staying like a child even into our older age. Lord, what do you have today? What adventure do you have today? Is that word old to you, the word adventure? If it is, I would suggest you've quit learning. And maybe it's time to start opening our hearts up to learning again from God. He's always teaching, He's always speaking, and He's always working. And the final strategy offered is mentors, having mentors. So, how do you finish well? Having mentors. And that kind of folds into the one we just talked about, the learning posture. But having mentors it's this idea that I'm not going to go at life alone. I have a lot to learn. And a way to do that is have people in my life who have permission to speak into my life, and making myself accountable to them. People that have, again, the permission, not just coddling me, not just counseling me or managing me or hearing me, which all of that's important, but am I willing to be mentored? Am I willing to listen to someone? And if they say something that is, objectionable to my way of thinking or my current behavior, am I willing to say, maybe I need a change of course, maybe I need a change of trajectory? And I'll tell you, I've grown, mentors in my life have saved me from so many pitfalls. And I was in situations and they would either show up uninvited, which made me upset, but it was of the Lord, or they would show up and, because I asked them and I said, hey, I'm really in a hard place. Could you speak into this thing? I don't want you to, because I'm hard-headed, I'm stubborn, and I want to keep going in this way. I want to stay messed up. I want to stay angry. I don't want to do the work of having to crawl out of this situation I'm in. But tell me what to do. I'm going to listen, because I've learned that I'm not the best advisor sometimes for my own life. And they say things, and I've had this happen more times than I can count, where someone will just say a little phrase and it just goes right here. And I there's this little part inside of me, by the grace of God, that says, listen to that. And I say, oh Lord, I don't know everything. And, if we can't respond to men and women, we can't respond to God. Did you know that? It's really true. You might say, oh, I'm accountable to God only. Nah, the way we respond to other people says a lot about how we really respond to God. The scripture's very clear about that when it comes to forgiveness, when it comes to how we really love people, and when it comes to taking correction. So getting a mentor. Hey, that's it. Just a few strategies. This thought of finishing well. There's a lot of people shipwrecking around us, and you and I are, we don't want that to happen. So keep the faith, run the race, and I hope this thought encourages you, challenges you, and gives you strength for what's ahead. God bless you. Peace to you, and I hope to see you soon. Everyone stay safe.